Thank you very much for joining us here this evening. You're watching Business at 9 and I'm Nivedna Prabhu. Let's begin with our top focus. The Russian strikes have killed 17 people, including 4 children in Ukraine, even as attempts are underway to end the Russia-Ukraine conflict. A 5-story residential building was destroyed and the EU mission and nearby British Council were damaged. The attack also comes days after Trump and Putin's meet in Alaska. The incident only goes on to prove how incorrect the statement of US trade advisor Peter Navarro is when he says that the Ukraine conflict is Modi's war, whereas the real question should be that is Trump helpless before Putin? And we put that question tonight. And joining me on the show, let me take that opportunity to introduce our guest, Raymond Bitri, former US Assistant Secretary of Commerce. Raymond, thank you very much for taking the time out and joining us here this evening on ET. Now, let me begin with the fact that when we look at it, Mr. Bitri, 17 civilians killed, children among the dead, and the EU's own delegation that has been damaged in Kyiv. And in a sense, has Putin just shown the world that Trump is powerless to stop him?
Well, thanks very much for having me. Peace and prosperity, just like war, must be waged. And so you must have strategy and you must have cooperating partners. Unfortunately, President Trump's approach to peace and prosperity do not include any of these considerations. His mindset is that of a real estate developer who makes a transaction and the two great people in the room decide, and presumably that redounds to his benefit and his stature. Of course, in international relations, it just doesn't work that way. As I said earlier, it requires a strategy. And it requires coalition partners to be able to achieve that. That having been said, it seems to me that the conduct of Russia has laid bare what is false about this transactional as opposed to a relationship approach. I think it is now time for great democracies like India, like other democracies in Europe, Japan, Australia, to step forward and fill the vacuum which has been created by President Trump to try to get us back to a semblance of a multilateral approach to waging peace and prosperity. Those values are enshrined in the Indian Constitution. They're enshrined in the United Nations Charter. They are not those which President Trump is subscribing to. And I would remind your viewers not to confuse the United States of America with President Trump. Sure, this is a factor. It's a very unfortunate situation, but we have midterms coming up. We have a constitution which has checks and balances, even though it's being attacked here. And there are those who are defending it, defending our constitutional approach. And I believe the ship will right itself, but it's not going to be immediate. And it is going to require India to take a greater leadership role than it has in the past.
But Mr. Bitri, as you point that out, and given the aspect of what we're also looking at unfold here, what I want to put into context is that isn't it extraordinary that instead of confronting what we're looking at here, Trump's aides are targeting, India, a partner the U.S. needs in every theater, from trade to technology to security, because what Navarro now has called this Modi's war, isn't that an admission that Trump world has no answers for Putin? And so, you shift the blame onto India. How do you look at it from your vantage point?
Yes, I think you're absolutely right. I think what's happening here is that the Trump approach, the transactional approach, the disregard for great partners like India has put us into this situation. But the answer in going forward is for India to assume an even greater leadership role and not be just reactive to the latest statement, either from Trump or from Putin. I believe that India is a great power, and a great power has interests which are based on its own values and which are more than protecting its borders, even though that's important. And one of those interests and values, it seems to me, that India has, and Prime Minister Modi has said that this is not a time for war, is to use its leadership ability to combine with other democracies, whether they be in Europe, whether they be Japan, Australia, Brazil, and to try to get us back to some semblance of a rational approach here. I do not believe that the answer to this is to rush into the arms of Russia and China. That's for India to decide for itself. But it seems to me that the values which are expressed in the Constitution of India lead it in the path which I've just indicated. But you're absolutely correct. This Trump approach is counterproductive and is not going to lead to the kinds of results which will build peace and prosperity throughout the world.
In fact, as you pointed out, but I also want to draw in a perspective while our viewers are looking at what Navarro's also said, that, when you look at that and the framing ultimately of those words, it's in a sense proof that Trump's foreign policy is out of its depth. Mr. Bitri, unable to hold Putin accountable, but now willing to burn bridges with key allies like India.
Well, Peter Navarro is a very fringe operator who has gotten prominence because he's been willing to kowtow to the worst instincts of President Trump. The very concept that you would say that it's India's war is ridiculous. Putin is the man who decided to invade on the 24th of February 2022 to try to reestablish the Imperial Russian operation, which had become the USSR. So to lay this at the feet of India is incorrect. That having been said, it seems to me that India does have a broader responsibility, particularly since it has a relationship with Russia. It needs to provide the leadership which has been abdicated by the United States under President Trump to be able to try to restore the principles that you don't invade somebody else's country and try to take over their people and their land in order to make yourself a greater nation. Putin's approach is a throwback to the 19th century at least, in which greatness was measured not by building prosperity and individual rights, but by controlling other lands and other people. That's his mindset. Unfortunately, our president seems to have bought into this into some degree. Peter Navarro's approach across the board, not only in regard to India, but this whole idea of building a fortress America economically, which is going to have its own way of doing things, regardless of what others think, is absolutely wrong. I do believe this is an aberration. I think Peter Navarro is an aberration. But it's a very difficult object that we have to overcome, both in India and the United States as the two largest democracies in the world, to right this ship of international relations.
You've called Navarro as a fringe operator as well, taking a cue from what you said. Look what Navarro's also said about India earlier, right? He talked about India's alleged arrogance, but is India's stand very clearly now hurting Donald Trump where it hurts the most? His ego.
Well, I think that you put your finger right on a basic problem, and that is President Trump's ego. There have been neurologists in this country who've diagnosed him as a narcissistic maniac. And it's not about whether or not somebody else is going to be able to get the credit. It's not about friendship. It's about the great man, which he considers himself, and what makes him even greater. There's no such thing as a win-win kind of a situation with President Trump. It's I've got to be the winner and somebody else has to be the loser. Well, that's an approach which led this world into World War I, World War II, and that we've gotten away from for the last 80 years. In regard to U.S. and India, over the last 30 years, we've been able to have reconciliation, partnership, friendship, restoration
True.
of trust in the U.S.-India civil nuclear deal. And unfortunately, President Trump has listened to people who are fringe operators like Peter Navarro, and has in 24 hours thrown out about 30 years of progress in the U.S.-India relations.
Absolutely, Mr. Bitri, as you point that out, years of strong foundation that is currently going through testing times. But having said that, and with the fact that you have called out in terms of the sharp remarks that were made earlier as well, I want to thank you very much for joining us on the show tonight. But for the moment, we leave the conversation at that. We're also slipping a quick break here on Business at 9. Stay with us this Thursday evening. We'll be right back with lots more on the other side. Don't worry.